So, how's everybody? Today we're going to start the second unit in this virtual learning process. This is covering chapter 20 in the book, which deals with your civil liberties and protecting your individual rights. So, one of the first things we want to talk about is due process of law. So, what does due process mean? Well, it basically means that in whatever it does, meaning it being the government must act fairly and be consistent with established rules. It cannot, being the government again, cannot act unfairly, arbitrarily, or unreasonable. The way that the government acts and the laws under which it acts must be fair. So, there are two types of due process. One is procedural due process. This has to do with how, meaning the procedures and the methods, so how the government acts. And the second is substantive due process, and this involves the what, meaning the substance and the policies of any government action. So, due process. The Fifth and the 14th Amendment guarantees that both national, state, and local governments cannot deprive a person of his life, liberty, and property without the due process of law. Excuse me. The Supreme Court has ruled that these constitutional guarantees of due process create a right of privacy. So there is an issue where the police power comes in conflict with this, with these civil liberties. And the court has to be able to balance what is good for society as a whole and what is good for the individual in their freedom as a citizen. Okay? So let's talk about the police power. The police power is the authority of every state to act to protect and promote the public health, the safety, the morals, and the general welfare. It's got to be able to safeguard the well-being of its people. So oftentimes, though, the use of police power is going to conflict with civil liberty protection. Let's talk about drunk driving. So you get pulled over by the police. The officers are going to give you a field sobriety test. Sometimes it could be walking a straight line. Sometimes it could be touching your nose, or it could be blowing into a breathalyzer. So if the police make you do that, is that a violation of your 14th Amendment rights? Well, the court has said, no, it's not. Because the courts have been in support of the right of the society to protect itself against drunk drivers, and they've rejected the individual right of that drunk driver. Okay? He has the right to drink, he has the right to drive. No, that's not the case, because now you are potentially causing problems to society. So, protecting the public is one of the big issues here. So, legislatures and the courts have often found that the public's health, their safety, and their welfare are very important. Three things. They need to promote the health, meaning the state can limit things like the sale of alcohol and tobacco to minors, and also to require children to be vaccinated so they don't spread disease. Secondly, they need to promote safety, okay? And in that, the state can do things like require you to wear a seatbelt while you're driving, and they also, again, like we talked about with drunk drivers, they can punish you for drunk driving. And the third thing is to promote the general welfare. And in this, they could do things like making it compulsory for you to go to school. They can provide medical care for those who are needy and can't afford insurance. And they can also limit the profits of public utilities, things like the power company. So, the right of privacy. So, the Constitution guarantees of due process create a right of privacy. And they say, and this is a quote, the right to be free, except in very limited circumstances, from unwanted governmental intrusion into one's privacy. So what this means in short is that you have the right to be left alone. Now, the most controversial application of this right of privacy came under Roe versus Wade, where basically it says, to what extent can a state limit a woman's right to have an abortion? The Supreme Court had struck down a rule in Roe versus Wade that had come out of Texas that said that it made an abortion a crime unless it was necessary to save the life of the mother. So the court comes in and overthrowing that, it said that using the 14th Amendment rights to privacy, this included a woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restrictions. Now, we know every year Roe versus Wade comes up. You have the big fight between the right to life and the pro-choice movements, okay? So, will Roe versus Wade survive? Well, one of the things that President Trump has done is to appoint justices to the Supreme Court who are more leaning towards the Republican side of things, the conservative side of things, which think that abortion should be illegal. So when Brett Kavanaugh was nominated to the Supreme Court and appointed to the Supreme Court, he tipped the scales to the anti-abortion segment. You've got Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Roberts, and Thomas now who are anti-abortion. So there's more anti-abortion than there is pro-choice. So one of the things that they're coming up against now is that, will this stand? Or will these new justices that are leaning more towards pro-life and not pro-choice, will they overturn Roe versus Wade? We're just going to have to wait and find out. So we'll stop here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.